Well, just like all three of our analysts predicted, the Minnesota wind chill take care of business.
I don't believe you at all. That's such a lie.
In the first semifinal here at UFA Championship Weekend, the wind chill victorious 16-13 over the DC Breeze. Thanks so much for joining us here on Game Day Live. Ian Toner, along with James Pollard, Alex Atkins, Bryce Merrill, and the victorious Dylan DeClerc. Dylan, thanks for giving us some of your time. I'd love to get your initial reactions to that game, the emotions going through you right now. You're playing for a championship tomorrow.
Yeah, it feels great. We've been building toward this all season. We set this out at the very first practice. We kind of had a strategic conversation and said, what are our goals this year? What are we doing? And honestly, I think the team was kind of selling ourselves short a little bit in that conversation. It was like, oh, we want to win the division. We want to make it to championship weekend. And then Ben and some of the leaders kind of stepped up and said, we didn't put this team together so we could go to championship weekend. We put this team together so we could win championship weekend. So it feels really good to be one game away from that goal. And yeah, appreciate the whole team for committing to that, our captains for pushing us there, and our coaches for giving us a great game plan that we were able to switch into. And we kind of went with version A, and then we switched over to some secondary lines in order to pull it out at the end.
As much as they had a great game plan, that was a bumpy road. You guys traded haymakers with DC. They had an incredible run to start the second half. We asked Josh Klain on the post game, what was the key to responding to that adversity? I'd be curious to your perspective. Did anyone say anything, or is this just something that this team knows how to do?
I think we just know how to do it. And in fact, we did it 2 weeks ago when Madison made a run at the end of the third quarter, and they kind of made it close. And what do? We won the fourth quarter 7-2 last game. So we know how to respond. It's nice when you get that kind of quarter break in between that third and fourth quarter. Take a breather, but at the end of the day, you know, you got Josh Klain, you got some awesome throwers that can really rip it upwind. And at the end of the day, I think those guys were the big difference maker for us for scoring in those upwind end zones.
What's it like adjusting mentally to perhaps, you know, a more traditional game where you got your O and D lines to, hey, we're responding to the elements and we're playing our upwind, downwind. We've got rules about where and when we need to throw the disc in certain conditions. What is that like as a player?
Yeah, I kind of talked about it in my post-game interview today of like, we haven't had the same 7 players playing O-line all season. We haven't had the same 7 players playing D-line all season. And I think there's disadvantages to that, but I think the advantage to that is anybody's ready to go and ready to play any position at any time, and I think it really worked to our benefit tonight. We had our strongest lineup, I think, but on top of that, not only did we have a strong lineup, we had a strong lineup that was willing to play lots of different positions. So everybody's bought in, and everybody was willing to do anything. I heard Josh say, like, I'm willing to come out here and throw 70 turnovers if that's what it takes, and I think the whole team was willing to do that tonight. That probably doesn't surprise you very much that Josh said that. He's trying to put up Ben Feldman type numbers on the turnover game. So,
you know, I was trying to avoid referencing Ben Feldman's college championship appearance, but in these conditions, you can't help but at least mention it. I want to bring our analysts into the conversation too. Guys, what do you think got Minnesota to kind of change the narrative relative to how they'd performed previously at championship weekend and what you expected coming into this game?
I think the game plan. I think it was obvious early that y'all decided, screw the downwind. We're not even going to try to play with the disc. We're going to get it to a thrower, send someone deep. If it works out, it works out. If not, we're going to lock in. They're not going to get it past midfield, and then we're just going to use that short field to work with. So.
Yeah, and it was apparent early that you guys won the energy battle, especially in the first half. I think DC was struggling to keep that energy up. I think their coach touched on it at halftime, whereas you guys seemed to embrace the tough conditions and the turnovers. Had me a little concerned going into this at the start of the third quarter. I was like, oh, maybe DC is going to pull this back out, but a really strong fourth quarter. And I think, yeah, the size, like the way you guys were able to play in the wind, make a couple big plays and score some crucial downwinders that became pretty hard at the end of the game. It was fun to watch.
You know, I could tell that y'all were the team that has most recently been at championship weekend. So many moments for me there where something went wrong, and y'all bounce back. I think of Matt Rader and his ability to go and get a huge layout D after he turned it over. A thrower like Klein, who is going to make several turnovers and immediately keep running the plan that had been set out by the team and by the coach. That's emotionally exhausting, and I think y'all had shown that veteran experience and that presence, that ability to push that narrative and just fight through for 2 full hours and come out victorious.
Yeah, as much as last year sucked, losing in that fashion, I think it prepared us well to come back and win. I felt a lot more nervous. I had a lot more jitters last year. I really wasn't ready for the moment, and this year I think we were ready. So it feels good to be ready and feels good to be in a championship.
Dylan, congratulations on the win. We got to turn our attention to the next semifinal, Carolina and Seattle. I know you got some cool down and recovery to do. You got a championship match to play tomorrow. Appreciate your time. Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks for picking us. Pick us tomorrow.
Dylan DeClercq and the Minnesota Wind Chill win 16-13 over the DC Breeze. When we come back here on Game Day Live, we're turning our attention to the Seattle Cascades and Carolina Flyers. Keep it right here on WatchUFA.tv.
They hate when you elevate. You're stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I could levitate. They never believed that I would really fly, I had to go demonstrate. I had to set them straight. They hate when you elevate.
Throw like a pro with a new Pro Ultimate Frisbee. Created with input from the sport's premier passers, the Pro Frisbee is specially designed to fly through the wind and maintain its edge. Experience the official Frisbee of the UFA and get yours at shopufa.com today.
Welcome back to Zions Bank Stadium. Less than 20 minutes away from opening pull between the Seattle Cascades and Carolina Flyers. A lot more to digest from that first semifinal, but as we look ahead to the second semifinal, I want to put our analysts on the spot. Of course, they were batting 1,000 after that first one, and mindful of these conditions, let's check on your picks going into this one. James, let's start with you.
I think I'm changing my pick.
You're changing your pick. You're changing your pick. That's the pick you submitted before we started the broadcast. 23-17
I think
Carolina.
the conditions, though, I like Seattle. I like the energy. I think if they can win those jump balls on these punts, I think they're in a good spot.
So you like Zeklin Ronig over a Jacob Fairfax or something like that?
I do.
Big call from the man from Philadelphia. Alex, what do you got?
It is hard for me to stick with the same pick that I had. I think you can take about 5 points off of my total score and add about 30 to 40 turnovers for my prediction. Yeah, I think you can throw my picks in the trash.
You still picking Carolina, though?
I'm sticking with Carolina, but just minus like 4 points for each team.
Bryce?
I've coached a lot of games at Zions Bank, and when this sun sets here in half an hour, it will drop 5 to 10 miles an hour. So I think the wind's going to be a huge factor, but I think it's going to more resemble the game of Frisbee that we love in this second game. So I'm going with Carolina in a close one. I think their size and their throwing skill is going to help them pull this game out.
Evan?
I also think Carolina has maybe a little bit more size than we're giving them credit for. I mean, it's not just Jacob Fairfax, but Henry Fisher is a giant. Drew Swanson, Wellers can make plays in the air. I think, Alan Laviolette, Elijah Long, Anders Junks keep the disc moving, and the Flyers defenders are flying around. I think I picked Carolina by 5. Maybe I'll change that to Carolina by 3, but I think the Flyers win it.
I heard you touch on some names. I'd love to hear you each elaborate on an X factor that you expect to be a crucial key swing player or impact decision maker in this game.
I think I picked Alan Laviolette.
Okay.
He can do it all. He can go deep. He's really fast. He's also really good with the disc and works the underspace. He loves to just take what the defense gives him. And I think that's going to be huge for Carolina tonight.
And despite Allen's greatness, you still think Seattle's going to pull it off?
Yeah, I think Zeklin Ronig is going to dominate the deep space.
Okay. Alex?
I'd be interested to see how big of an impact Anders can have on this game. I think because he's so squirrely, he's able to get open in really small spaces, and they're able to complete some little passes, get the disc moving to open up a big power position shot. I think he could be really useful.
I want to go with a defensive player, and I want to pick Ambrose, but we saw that defensive opportunities were not at a premium in that first game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Spencer Lofink. With Sifo back in the lineup for Seattle and probably taking some of the center handling duties back over, can Lofink as a cutter be that continuation thrower that helps him get from layer 1 to layer 2 and work some of those upwind and downwind points? I think he's primed for a big game.
What do you want to see from Sifo stepping back into this lineup after not being active in the playoffs and dealing with these adverse conditions?
If he can do his best Klain impersonation, I know, he's a veteran handler. He probably wants possession. He probably wants to preach pace and patience. But I think he needs to be able to both sort of general the offense and get them to the spots, and then be willing to absorb some turnovers to keep that pace going and keep that attack downfield. He's got to be willing to do that as a veteran.
Well, it's interesting because Carolina isn't always a handler hucking team. They're a cutter to cutter hucking team. But I got my eye on Elijah Long, and I'm curious what he'll do in these conditions. He's 99 for 99 passing so far in the playoffs. I don't think he's going to stay 100% tonight, but I do think he's going to have a lot of touches, and I think he's going to be really a critical disc mover for a Flyers offense that even in these conditions, I mean, we saw the DC Breeze in stretches possess the disc really nicely. I think we'll see that from Carolina as well, especially as Bryce mentioned, as the conditions die down a little bit with the evening moving on.
Well, now just under 15 minutes away from opening pull here, the second semifinal of championship weekend. Don't be afraid, and don't forget to tune in to watchufa.tv. 9:30 Eastern, 7:30 Mountain. That's when opening pull will go up between Seattle and Carolina. Thank you so much for joining us here on Game Day Live, brought to you by Power Up. For Evan, Bryce, Alex, James, I'm Ian. We'll catch you when the second semifinal starts.